Hello, making a clay video, and I need to talk about, first I'm going to talk about the medical situation in the world, and particularly here in the United States, where we have total exploitation and farmer industry together with all the other industries that support each other in terms of corruption. So in this country, there's almost natural healing is left only to a few people who really get it, who really understand. And most people are swept up by, the medical pharma industry, commercials that are also woven into movies and talk radio, and all kinds of people that are paid by them, who are even boosted up into fame, helped to write some self-help medical books and self-healing books, and that are actually promoted by the pharma industry. But people, they don't see through it. They are, because they're so biased by this entire right-wing agenda already, that it just feeds into this already existing platform that people have downloaded into themselves. So then they hear an NLF, football star. They hear, that, for just an example now, who will have had that training from the medical industry and been, artificially put into, or, being paid by them, and because they know people are adoring those people, and then they will spread a lie. This is just an example now of what is happening here, particularly in the United States. So people will believe those then, as particularly, anyone who feeds into that existing or downloaded program that they hold, the Republican corporate program, Christianity being totally used for this also, and threats and all this entire thing. So I know someone personally who is in bad physical shape, and we thought he was gonna die. And well, it's real frightening. I feel terrible for him. And I can't reach this man with holistic information. He's already made up his mind that he rejects all the good people, and this comes from the corporate agenda. This is being played into that entire program. I give him a flower of innocence. I give you flower of innocence. I care about you. I love you. The man who is dying is so sick, he's dying. It's tuberculosis. I give him the flower. And I give all of you flower, all of you who are in hospitals, who are struggling with whatever illnesses. Give you flower of innocence. And I wish deeply for you that you listen to my videos. You listen to it with an open mind, because I know that it will help you down the line, even if it feels, even if I so totally do not fit into that platform and that program that they have put into you, give it a chance, give me a chance anyway, it can't hurt you. It can't hurt you to listen to a darky lady for an hour. It can't hurt. So listen to her, what she has to say. Listen to all of them. Listen to everyone who doesn't fit into that corporate agenda, platform, program, and see what they have to say. See what Dr. Michael Greger has to say without, without coming at that already with a pre-installed resistance that you have been given by the people that work for the corporate agenda, or Dr. Richard Shaw's. Go and listen to these people with an open mind and see what they have to say, because they are the ones who have helped millions of people heal themselves from so-called incurable diseases and illnesses and whatever, even genetic stuff. So that's how powerful whole vegan food is. Okay, and I'm infinitely grateful. Infinitely great. I wouldn't be here anymore if it wasn't for Dr. Richard Scholz, Dr. Michael Grieger, John Kohler, Raw Food Christina, Freely the Banana Lady, and many other people. Okay, Matt Monarch and his wife, Angela Stokes, okay, who have completely healed themselves from any kind of problems, from obesity, heart, whatever, any kind of problems you can imagine. They healed them. I don't know if they had heart problems, but they were not fully healthy. Okay, so, and they completely healed themselves, made themselves super strong and super robust and super sturdy and healthy and have a zest for life, and they have energy. Okay, they have huge energy, unshakable. It's like most people don't have that kind of energy. Yes, Matt Monarch and his wife Angela. That's amazing. And yes, they too have some, even they too have some emotional, we all have some emotional problems that we're constantly ongoing dealing with. And they are dealing with it in the bravest, most amazing way. In the most honest way. And that's the way to go. It's an ongoing healing journey, so all of this, the whole life, you don't go to a doctor and now I get a fix and now I'm fixed and it's all, now I'm like a machine, someone repaired an old wheel and I'm on working again. It doesn't work that way. It's much more complex than that. Okay. We carry information with us genetically, there's energetic issues, it goes very deep into energy patterns that we inherit in our DNA. Even Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this in his book Biology of Belief. It's a very important book. He talks about epigenetics, which is a new field in research, very important discoveries, originally discovered by Dr. Barbara McClintock, who was a biologist, and she did experiment with corn plants and breeding and crossbreeding and experimenting to see whether the environment has certain influences actually on the DNA, and indeed it does, and people didn't believe her. She went undetected and marginalized to the core for decades. Like in her 80s, they finally accepted what she has discovered, but only grudgingly, because you can imagine the male egos in the scientific community. So, and she just said, "Oh, I'm glad they caught on." So, amazing woman. So, anyway, this subject is complex. It is very, very, very deeply complex. And I'm still coughing. Last night it was very bad bronchitis again. But I went through different stages. Now I'm coming into the end stage now, where it is it's liquefying itself, and it's in the healing stage. So thank goodness. I thought I wasn't gonna make it through the first night. The first night was really the hardest of all, I thought. And that was the wake-up call, because it was 4 days ago, right after I made the last two videos. I couldn't even upload them right away, So we went shopping, hiking, all of these things was too much for me. I didn't listen to my inner voice to stay at home, because I was hanging in with that flu, and it was kind of like, it wasn't really breaking out, but I had low energy for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, real, and body aches and all these flu symptoms, like the pre-flu symptoms. And yeah, so I ignored my inner voice. I went anyway. Then I got way too exhausted, and that night was so bad. It was so awful. I had cold shivers. I started to get a terribly violent headache. My nose started to also clog up. Then I started to cough, dry cough, which I have been off and on for 2 or 3 weeks, but now it got really intense. Then I got intense, extreme nausea. I thought I could will it away with the Wim Hof technique, and it helped maybe a little bit, but what didn't help enough, because it was already, it had already the pathogen, the virus, I assume it's the virus, had already multiplied itself to the point where it affected my health, where it affected my lungs, my entire breathing apparatus. And it felt like it affected my heart as well. So then I couldn't sleep. I was shivering with coldness. I was suffering so incredibly bad. I prayed to the infinite universe, to my blue God, to protect us, because I want to be there for Papa Dog. I don't want to die. I don't want to go to the hospital. And I'm making a video right now, so we can talk about that later. So yeah, I know someone who is in real bad physical shape, and we talked to him earlier, and I'm not in the right mindset, and I'm not physically fit enough right now to be this calm guru or whatever for him. So, but when I heard that he was feeling a little bit better than the last time Paul talked to him, so I went and talked to him for a few moments, and I said, I'm glad you're feeling better. This is really good. And so I said to him, because I had to go back upstairs, I couldn't stand there for the whole time, because I know Paul and him, they always talk for many hours. So I said to him, first of all, we told him what happened to me, and that the raw food was the only thing that saved my life. I went completely raw for 3 days, totally saved my life. So we told him, and he immediately went into resistance mode. And so I said to him, because I knew that this conversation wasn't going to go anywhere, and I might even get mad, that won't help anyone. That will not help him, and he's already, because he's in that program, and I am not going to help him if I get mad. So that's one thing that I really get now. That's something that is so crystal clear to me, that we can't help anyone if we get mad. So I just told him, I said, I have to go, but I wanted to just let you know right now that if you want to help, if you want to heal yourself, first of all, make sure you get out of there safely soon. And then you need to do the entire Incurable program by Dr. Richard Schultz. And I left him with that, and he immediately started to argue with me. I walked away because I knew he was gonna just argue and argue and argue against it. So he started to tell me about, certain people that promote animal stuff and whatever is paleo, whatever, and 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 they know so much, and they are medical. I said the medical industry is trained in promoting pharmaceutical drugs and promoting the corporate agenda in general. So those are not the people to listen to at all. Okay. If we want to listen to someone, listen to people who give out books for free, like Dr. Michael Greger, and who go and Dr. Schultz initially gave his book out for free as well. So no, a lot of Dr. Schultz has become very famous now, and his products are stellar, and his so-called incurable disease program for any disease that has been doomed incurable by physicians. Okay, so he has an entire package there that costs, I don't know, $400 or something. It's expensive, but it is stellar. It's stellar high quality. So for anyone who can afford it, like the guy, our friend that we've been talking to, he can afford it. Okay. So but I guess probably most people won't do it because they don't understand it. They don't understand. They don't get the point of it. They don't see how critically important it is. So, but you can even do it alone. You don't even need Dr. Schultz. You need to listen to these people more. So you need to listen to them, what they have to say, and the basic bottom line is what these two people are saying is that raw plant food is the ultimate medicine. It's the ultimate holistic medicine for us. And that is gonna save our lives, okay? And that is what kept me out of the hospital for the last 3 days. And hopefully until all the way through with Papa Dog. I want to be there all the way through for Papa Dog. That is my goal. So after Papa Dog is back at the Orion Nebula, then when everything is safe, then I can whatever. Then we'll see what happens. So that doesn't matter. So Papa Dog is the most important thing in my life, and I live for him, and he's the meaning of my life, and I'm his mother, and I want to be there for him so I can protect him. And I said that to the infinite universe. I said that to my blue God 3 days ago when I was talking to the infinite in my bed, shivering in coldness and suffering unimaginable torture, physical torture. And I thought this was direct karma from the candy that I ate, and Paul bought me this cheesy soup and all of this, which I should have just flat out rejected. I should have said, you can eat it, don't pawn it off on me. He even paid $4 for it. And the problem is the addiction. We are addicted to these things, addicted to animal products, addicted to dairy, addicted to chocolate, addicted to white sugar. I don't eat meat at all, but I have occasionally fallen back onto dairy and candy and sugar, and that's really, really, really awful, because you pay a real high price for this, particularly when you're 53 and older. That's when it gets really critical. That's when the body might slow down a little bit, might become a little sluggish. Also, when we don't exercise enough, then it becomes harder and harder for the liver to digest all of these things, because it runs through the liver and the other organs also. And man, that's hard on the heart. It's awful, really awful. So I thought I was gonna, and then my heart was beating really, really fast, tum, 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 the whole night. I couldn't sleep, and it was just nightmare. And I thought I was gonna go to the hospital. I thought this is gonna be bad. And so then next day, the only thing I drank was the very next day. The only thing I put into my because I vomited that night. I had diarrhea, blaring, bursting headache, like in my prefrontal cortex in particular. I thought my brain was gonna swell up or something. That's what it felt like. So it was really it was unbelievably painful. I don't know if I've ever suffered like this ever before from any kind of flu. So I thought this was not just the flu. This was hard on my organs and heart and all of this. So, and last time I was tested, they said that I have dangerously high liver levels, and so that scared me also very much. And they told me, because I told them that I was going raw, and that was after my inflammatory bowel syndrome. I went to the doctor because it was so bad. For 4 weeks I had inflammatory bowel syndrome. It wasn't going away. And during that time I was also very depressed and ate a lot of chocolate, which really inflamed my bowels. And so chocolate's not only toxic for dogs, it's also toxic for humans. But the chocolate industry is so big, they would never admit that. They would never. They have their people who say it's good for you. Yeah, they have their blogs. They pay their people. So, but yeah, I mean, I see the results. My face was completely crimson red. I looked like a lobster. I mean, it was incredible. My whole body was inflamed. So, but yeah, by the time I went to the doctor, it was a couple years ago, I had started on completely raw because I had already watched Matt Monarch and his wife Angela Stokes, who healed themselves with raw food, and they stayed on it. They didn't go off. They encouraged each other. They stayed. They didn't have they were only around people who encouraged that. See, that's the other tricky thing. When you live with someone who doesn't encourage you, who lures you back into the junk food, that's really, really, really difficult. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. And that's what happened to me. Well, anyway, I was raw for 3 weeks. I cured the inflammatory bowel syndrome. I cured even my nightmares, my night terror. I cured my insomnia, everything. And Paul got me back on the junk after, here's some pasta for you. I crave it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and the whole story fell back. Fell all the way back. Then was off and on chocolate intermittently, and then I was fully vegan for many months. Then I slipped back, and I was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until today. So after that night, the next day, the only thing I put into my body was a tea that Paul made with honey, green tea, cinnamon, and ginger. Yeah, that's what it was. And that tasted good, and my stomach was able to support that, and I was still nauseated the whole day. Terrible headache all day long. But around 12 midnight after that second day, it started to get better. So then that night was also horrible. Not as bad as the night before, but that night was so bad that my nose air ducts were completely swollen and closed, and I had to sit up. That happened to me before, where I had to sit up trying to sleep because I didn't want to get sleep apnea and suffocate during my sleep. So it causes you terrible panic when you can't breathe. It's an awful way to go. So and then dry coughing still and all of this going on as well, but at least the headache and the nausea was gone, and I kept eating raw ginger root, and this nibbled on a raw ginger was that's very helpful. That's also the best cough medicine. It's better than cough hard candy, because they're all made with white sugar. I don't touch those anymore. I can't stand just the idea of it. So I eat the stuff directly. I eat the herbs raw, not processed in some hard candy that is made with white sugar. White sugar is really poison. It really is. So yeah, and that night was also really bad. I had to sit up. And then the third night, last was the last night, yes, I had real terrible coughing, but it's loosening up, but it was awful coughing, and I didn't get very much sleep, a little bit more than the nights before, and terrible coughing, and green frogs coming out, and but that's already, when that happens, that's in the last stage, that's in the where it loosens up, So, and then after that green stuff, then it loosens up more and it becomes white phlegm, clear phlegm, and then it is on its way out. So I'm today, I guess that is this last stage now, where I still have coughing going on a lot. I feel the coughing sensation. I feel this inflammation in my lungs. It feels awful. It feels like, almost feels like something is like tickling my lungs, my lung epithelials inside. Something is tickling it, like some kind of, feels like some kind of real tiny wires, or like a wire brush is going through the inside of my lungs. That's what it feels, a real strange feeling. Oh gosh, oh, it's awful. And that, that triggers this coughing reflex, and that's really awful. Dry cough is really the worst. That can even cause the lungs to bleed. So once it becomes liquefied and it has its own phlegm to flush out any kind of pathogens out of the lungs, and those lung epithelials that are inside that are that have the function to take in oxygen from that give out the oxygen to the capillaries. So that's how it works. That's, you breathe air in, and that air is then supposed to be routed through those epithelial cells in the lungs, into the capillaries, into the fine blood vessels that are docked onto those epithelial cells. And they pick up the oxygen and they bring it to your brain so that your brain can function, and your whole body. That's how it works. And also the heart is supposed to pump all of this, and supposed to pick up nutrients from this in the same way, pick up the nutrients from the colon and bring that to the lungs. So it's an exchange of nutrients and oxygen that's constantly going on in order to make this machine work. It's extremely complex what's going on in a body, and in any body, dog, horse, human, and it's even more complex in the brain. So it's unbelievable. I'm reading this book by Thomas Metzinger, The Ego Tunnel. It's unbelievably complex. the brain, particularly the human brain. And they haven't even gotten to the whale and dolphin brains yet, and that's even more complex. So, yeah, when it's that complex, J.D. Krishnamurti and Dr. David Bohm called it infinitely complex. So it's so complex that I don't think scientists will ever figure it all out. So because you can imagine what's going on with that, how these with all of these psychological defense mechanisms that are happening and all of these things. But before I get into this, I just wanted to emphasize one last time before I move on to another subject, because this is very, very, very important that people really get this. When your body isn't functioning, when you are real violently sick, the way you heal yourself is not with pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, that's just gonna hurt the liver even more. The way you heal yourself is by going fully raw. Raw plants. Okay, fresh raw plants, not frozen, not canned, not even dried. Okay. Fresh raw plants, and possibly right out of your vegetable garden, without pesticides on it, without ever using pesticides, without ever using any kind of chemical that doesn't belong in nature. Okay, that's how you heal yourself. It's very simple. It's super simplistic. Okay, that's how we evolved. That's how every animal has evolved on this planet, to heal with raw plants. And we also need a lot of oxygen from nature, and we need rigorous exercise. And Dr. Mercola and Dr. Grieger were talking about this. They had a wonderful conversation that's also on YouTube. And Dr. Grieger always, when he talks to anyone on YouTube, he walks on his treadmill. It's just marvelous, as he uses that time to walk on the treadmill instead of leaning back, in his recliner, or leaning back on an office chair and just, where the blood settles down and you get sluggish. So he uses that time and walks steadily, not fast, but walks steadily on that treadmill. That's amazing. It's cool, wonderful. A real intelligent man. And so I recommend to people to listen to these people. Yeah, I'm still making the video. Recommend to people to listen to these people. It's very, very important. Very important people. Dr. Michael Grieger, Dr. Mercola, and Dr. Richard Schultz. Okay, those are marvelous people. Amazing. So listen to those people. Listen to what they have to say, because they really get into the details. They get into all the herbs. They get into micronutrients, macronutrients, different foods. But the main thing is, with all of them, is whole food, vegan, and mainly raw. Okay, so particularly when someone is sick, you have to go completely raw food, raw plant food. That's what you have to do. Then you heal yourself. That's what I did. That's what saved me from going into the hospital. So I saved myself with the first day after I had already, that first night when I vomited and had diarrhea, and the next day was a blaring headache. It was unbelievable. I could not eat anything. I only drank tea. I drank herbal tea with green tea, with cinnamon and ginger and honey. And that's the only thing I put into my stomach. That saved me also. And then the next day I drank watermelon, blended watermelon. My husband chopped up watermelon, put it in the blender and blended it, and that's what I drank in this big container that I have. And I think I drank 2 of those. And then the next day I let Paul add celery and an orange into it, and it tasted wonderful. And that's what I had for dinner last night. And so today was the first day, the fourth day now, the first day that I started to eat something other than raw. And I should have stayed on raw. It would be better if I stayed on raw. But I had such intense cravings for string beans for some reason. And when you have an intense craving for something that's good, then that's your body telling, that's your inner wisdom, that's your body telling you that it needs those nutrients. So I listened to it, and didn't taste very good because they were canned. I don't like canned food at all, but that's all we had. My grandmother, she had a lovely vegetable garden, and my parents removed my grandparents' vegetable garden. My grandparents had this huge vegetable garden that the gardener was tending to, and they were getting their food from that. It was the freshest and best tasting food. And the first thing my parents do is when they inherited their house was remove that vegetable garden. It makes no sense to me. It really makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And so I asked them, why did you do this? Yeah, because it looks bad. It looks better to have it lawn. It looks bad? I don't understand. I guess they're still my parents are still from this era where they have this idea. It's all an idea. It's a fascist idea. This idea that someone who grows vegetables is poor. So they had to, in order to give the impression that they have plenty of money, they need to have the garden look like just like a totally manicured, artificial looking park sort of thing. And I find that so incredibly sad, and that's what I wanted to get to next is, the complexity of the ego, the complexity of the egoic defense mechanisms, the running away from the actuality, and running away through all kinds of venues, that are totally artificial and neurotic, like removing a vegetable garden because of some kind of prestige type of fashion type of thinking. That is so utterly adverse. That is so incredibly wrong, in my opinion, to do something like this. They even cut down some of the prune trees, and she used to use these prunes to make wonderful, lovely prune, like a cake, like a, how's it called? And, prune pies. They were really wonderful, with the prunes on top sliced and unbelievably delicious. And you could taste the difference between prunes from the garden and prunes that you buy. So the ones from that garden, they were just full of flavor and nutrients. And my parents cut some of those down. Unbelievable. It's just, to me, it's unbelievably sad how an image, a self-image, an idea of prestige can come in and make these people remove such a vital food source in their garden. They had a paradise. They had everything you can imagine. They had string beans, they had asparagus, they had peas. I remember as a child it was paradise. We would always go and we would draw out our own carrots out of the ground, and we would be like, look, this is a real big one, look. I got a big carrot here. And they tasted so good. They had such amazing flavor. They were gourmet. It's awful hard. I haven't lived there anymore. And it's also not my legislation. But it makes me very sad. It makes me very, very sad. And I know my grandmother would be very sad to hear that. It makes me very sad. How the need for prestige, which is just an empty idea, how that can sabotage a person's life to that degree. And this is just one example. The examples for self-sabotage because of prestige thinking is there's no end to it. We see it in this society over and over and over. It happens all the time. Prestige thinking, and it's just an idea. It goes back to the ego wanting to be liked, wanting to boost itself, wanting to boast, wanting to brag. I cried earlier, told Paul that my whole life is just pain, suffering. I'm not talking about the physical now. Again, physical pain is hard, but it will fade away. But what's really hard is the permanent emotional pain, the emotional scars. That's the hardest to deal with on a daily basis. When you have physical pain, you're preoccupied with this mainly, particularly when it gets really rough. Like like that 3 nights ago, and then also a couple of times with my teeth. Teeth can cause some incredible physical pain. It's insane. It's such a small nerve or something, in this whole big body, but it's but a tooth nerve can really create some pain. And yeah, I've had that, and then in that moment I will be completely occupied with that. I forgot about all my emotional problems in that moment. I mean, they're still there, and they're also pressing underneath, but the pain kind of takes dominance over all of this from the tooth. So yeah, that can happen. It's kind of like Ernie in Sesame Street. Bert says, Ernie, the faucet is dripping. And Ernie says, okay, let me turn on the vacuum cleaner. Then you don't hear the faucet dripping anymore. That's kind of like that severe torture, tooth pain, and that horrible headache all night long, pounding on my forehead. I thought it was gonna swell up or something. My entire prefrontal cortex. And I need my prefrontal cortex. I desperately need that to function. And then I gave myself affirmations. Even with all of this pain, I gave myself love. I kissed my skin and I crossed my arms like Dr. Kristen Neff always recommends to do. Cross your arms over your solar plexus and you give yourself love and you say, I feel for you, even if it's the own body saying that. I feel for you, okay, I'm here for you. We, as a whole, the body is, as consisting of many animals, many little animals. Many of those don't even have our own DNA, so they're symbiotic beings. So it's a whole. So I say we are precious. Yeah. This conglomeration that I am and that you are and everyone is and every animal is a conglomeration of cells and symbiotic beings that work together as a whole. We are precious and we deserve to not be in pain. Nobody deserves to be in pain. No being, no being deserves to be in pain. No animal deserves to be tested. No monkey deserves to be put into an isolation. No animal baby should be in an isolation chamber for some neurologists to observe. It's absolute, it's the utmost cruel, the most cruel thing there is. Okay. And I suffer with all of them. This pops up in my brain and I say, I can't stand it. I say this like 100 times per night. I can't stand it. Even in that terrible suffering for the last 3 nights, I would always say, I can't stand it. And I pray to the infinite to protect all the beings out there. Protect all of us. And the ego is what causes the most suffering in the world. The ego of people who they pursue and pursue and pursue, these external things. But no matter how much they get, no matter how much recognition, money, or even empathy from others, it just keeps on going. It keeps on going. It keeps on going. The ego keeps on going. It's never happy. It's never enough. Because the pain hasn't been dealt with. The pain underneath has not been dealt with. So they pass it on to their children. Even genetically they do. They pass on a sorrow. It's amazing how that works. But